So then what about Blaise Pascal? What was his wager, that little writing of 2 or 3 pages, originally written in the French and now translated into the English? I wish I had time to read it to you this evening, but let me just give you a synopsis of Pascal's wager, and then we will begin to unpack the significance of this wager. Here it is. This is what Blaise Pascal said. God either exists or He doesn't. Based on the testimony of both general revelation, that is nature, the created works, and special revelation, that is the Scriptures. Blaise Pascal said, it is safe to assume that God does, in fact, exist. It is, he surmised, abundantly fair to concede that there is at least a 50% chance that the Christian Creator God exists. He said, therefore, since we stand to gain eternity, and thus infinity, the wise or safe choice is to live as though He does exist. If we are right, we gain everything and lose how much? Nothing. If we are wrong, we lose nothing and we gain nothing. Therefore, based on simple mathematics, Pascal reasoned that only the fool would choose to live the godless life. This is a simplified version of the wager. Now, do you understand the larger premise, yes or no? God either exists or He doesn't. And if there is, let's say, Pascal was abundantly fair to the skeptic and to the infidel. He said, let's just say there's only a 50% chance that the Christian Creator God exists. Since we stand to gain everything if that's true and lose nothing, and if it's not true, we lose nothing and still gain nothing, he said only the fool would choose to live the godless life. Now, I just finished reading a remarkable book entitled Fermat's Enigma, written by Simon Singh. And in this book, he talks a little bit about Blaise Pascal. And I want to just read this to you because I think you'll find it very fascinating. It says, Pascal founded the essential rules that govern all games of chance and that can be used by gamblers to define perfect playing and betting strategies. Furthermore, these laws of probability have found applications in a whole series of situations, ranging from speculating on the stock market to estimating the probability of a nuclear accident. Pascal was even convinced that he could use his theories to justify an intelligent belief in God. He stated, and I quote, quoting Pascal now, "The excitement that a gambler feels when making a bet is equal to the amount he might win multiplied by the probability of winning it." He then argued that the possible prize of eternal happiness has an infinite value, and that the probability of entering heaven by leading a virtuous life, no matter how small, is certainly finite. Therefore, according to Pascal's definition, religion was a game of infinite excitement and one worth playing because multiplying an infinite prize by a finite probability results in infinity. Now, do you follow that, yes or no? It's basically a distillation of his wager saying, it's better to be safe and err on the side of intelligence than sorry and err on the side of ignorance. Now, has anybody in this room, all of you pious saints, I'm looking out, very pious, has anybody in this room ever gambled? Ever bet on something? Raise your hands if you've ever bet on something. You know, I asked that question one time in South Africa. I'm going to get myself into trouble with all the South Africans. I was speaking to a congregation of probably 5,000 or 6,000, and I asked the question, has anybody in this congregation ever bet? And can you believe the hands were just like this? Nobody willing to admit that they had ever wagered a wager or bet a bet. The truth of the matter is we have sometimes rather innocuous kinds of bets where I'll say, maybe when I was young, I would have said to my brother, I'll bet you a nickel I can jump over that puddle. You know, that's the harmless bet. And then there are more advanced kinds of bets. Now, the point tonight is not to talk about the merits or demerits of gambling, because I think there really are no merits. But listen very carefully. There is one gamble that everybody in this room, in fact, everybody in the world, is going to make. And that is the gamble of your life. That is why this message is entitled Pascal's Wager. You bet your life. Now, when you make a gamble or a wager, you consider 3 factors. How many factors, everyone? 3 factors, and let's go over these very carefully so we understand each of them. We want to set the parameters for this, and then we're going to go directly to an incredible story right in the Gospel of Mark that will unpack this for us in an incredibly profound way. When you go to bet, or when you go to think about a wager, or when people who do wager and those kinds of things, when they think about this, there are three factors that affect whether or not that is an intelligent wager or a wager that is probably not best to enter into. The first is the size of the prize. The size of the what, everyone? Size of the prize. The second is the size of the risk. The size of the what? Risk. And the third is the chances or the probability of actually winning. So you have the size of the prize, the size of the risk, and the chances of winning. The size of the prize, the size of the risk, and the chances of winning. Now, let's just take a modern, common, contemporary gambling situation, the lottery. And let's plug the lottery into our little three-tiered equation, and let's see if we can think why some people, let's see if we can try to get our fingers wrapped around why it might be that some people would spend their money on a lottery ticket. Let's begin with the first one. The size of the prize to be gained. Is that a large prize or a small prize? Usually very large, several $million in some cases, and probably for most of us in this room, that would be very nice to have. So the size of the prize is very large. Now the second is, what's the size of the risk? Now I don't know because I don't buy lottery tickets, but I'll bet you they're just a couple dollars or two. So what's the size of the risk involved if a lottery ticket costs just $1? Is it a large risk or a small risk? Small risk. So notice what we have so far. We have a large prize, several $million. We have a small risk, and so everybody's thinking, it's time to run out and buy lottery tickets. But the third element is where the rub takes place, isn't it? What are the chances of actually winning the promised prize? In the lottery, are they what? Small or are they large? Very small. They say that the chances of getting struck by lightning twice is greater than the chances of winning the New York lottery. Now, why would somebody purchase a lottery ticket knowing that the chances of winning are so infinitesimally small? Chiefly because of this. The size of the prize is so large that it motivates. The size of the risk is so small, even though they know their chances are very small that they will win, we can at least understand somewhat the beginnings of the rationale as to why somebody would enter into that kind of a wager. Now, I don't recommend that. I don't think that's a principle of being a good steward, and I certainly don't. But we can at least enter into the mindset of somebody who would buy a lottery ticket. Size of the prize is large. Size of the risk is minuscule. Chances of winning are, sure, they're infinitesimally small, but because the risk is so small, what are they really losing? Now, the same principle applies to those slot machines in Las Vegas. You know, you put a quarter in or a nickel in. I actually read an article one time on the plane in which there is a slot machine at a particular casino in Las Vegas, I do not know, where you walk up to the teller and you hand them $1,000 in cash, and they give you a little token, a little coin. And you walk over to this slot machine, it's very tall, maybe 10 or 15 feet tall, and you put that into that slot machine, and then you pull it down. Now, you just put a $1,000 coin into that machine, friends. Now, think about this. You think the size of the prize is large? It better be. But what's the size of the risk involved? Way too much for you and I, amen? Hey, listen, if $1's too much, $1,000 is out of the question. But we can begin to understand why it might be that somebody would put a nickel into a slot machine or a quarter into a slot machine. Again, we don't recommend this, but the concept is at least easy to understand. The size of the prize is very large compared to the amount of risk that is involved. Chances of winning are low, sure, but the risk is so small.